that's me. You might be wondering to yourself, how did I get in this situation? Well, I thought I had enough wire. Alright. So, perfect time for an educational video. Um, I just ran out of wire. So, we're going to go ahead and load up a new. Yeah, can't feed no more. Alright. Oh. Alright, so the machine is off. And first thing I'm going to do is pull this excess wire out. Since I ran out of wire, it's obviously it's out of the track of the wheels, the feeder wheels, which means there's nothing to push this wire the rest of the way through the hose. Ooh, it's still a little warm though. Alright, so we got the wire out. Check that outside. So we're going to grab our new spool. Once again, it's a Sondler 0.30, and this is gasless flux because I don't run gas on any of my welders. They're too small and it's not really necessary. Okay. So we're going to break out of our trusty dusty God, Guns, and Guts. Okay, so when you pull it out the package, you can see there's a paper taped on the spool. That's because the wire, you can almost kind of think of it like a measuring tape. You know, it's all coiled up, and instead of it pulling back on its own like a measuring tape, this sucker wants to unspool completely. So if you've ever taken a measuring tape apart, on the inside it's this metal strip that they've wound so tight, that's what pulls the tape back in. And most of the time, once you lose the tension on that metal band, good luck fixing your tape. So when you're installing this, it's very, very important that you are ready to put the new spool on, because like I said, as soon as you take this tape loose, you gotta hold that wire tight. Otherwise this sucker is gonna unspool, and if you lose your tension, even though this is feeding it through, you lose your tension, you're in deep doo-doo. Deep doo-doo. Because this will still feed it through, but it's not going to be consistent. And if it's not consistent, then as you're going along, you might, your wire might be feeding just fine, and you're welding your bead, and then all of a sudden, the wire hits a spot where the tension's a little bit loose. And if the tension's loose as it's coming through these wheels, and these wheels are set for the tension version of the wire. And if you run into a spot where the wire's no longer tensioned, those wheels are not going to grab that wire the same way, and it'll slip, or it'll push way too much through in a short amount of time. which is going to lead to bursts in your weld, uh, which can also give you porosity, which then means you got to restart from scratch. So definitely important that you hold on to the wire once you undo this tape. To be honest, once you pull it out of there, I'd say just try to hold on to it. Another thing that I prefer to do, just to keep things good, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this janky end off, because I don't want anything getting stuck or caught when I'm trying to feed it into this spring. So another important thing is, and my machine has it labeled there. For my machine, the wire's going to be spooled out from underneath, so it's going to go in just like that. I'm not sure if it's the same for every machine, but make sure you know which direction it's supposed to spool. Okay. Definitely gotta be careful though. Okay. Got the paper off. I'm holding the tension. Now, first thing I'm gonna do is spool it, run it through that spring and try to get it. You gotta line it back up with the groove, and you gotta make sure that it feeds into, there's a little teeny tiny spring in there. I'll see if I can get you a close up in a second. You gotta make sure it feeds through both. Okay, so let me see if I can do this. Okay, I think that's a relatively decent view, maybe over a little bit. Okay, so you're gonna feed it through this spring assembly. Okay, almost lost it. Alright, there we go. That's not too bad, a little bit better. Alright, so you're gonna feed it through this spring first, and it's gonna run through your hinge mechanism, your tension adjuster, and then it's going to pass through your feeder wheels. And I'm not sure how well it shows up on camera, but that spring right there, that's where you're trying to feed that wire through. So let me go ahead and okay, so I got my wire through. Not sure. Sorry, I'm trying to hold my phone with my arm here. Can you, I guess you can kind of see that that's where the wire's running into. So I got my wire in place. Now I need to make sure it's in the groove. Make sure it's in the groove for the feeder wheel before you go ahead and set that tension back on there. Okay. So now, one other thing, you want to take your spool gun cable loose. That way, as you feed it through this assembly. Okay. Things are starting to slip and slide, and I don't like it. Don't like it at all. Alright, so I accidentally dropped my phone, but you can see the wires just now starting to peek out of there. Right inside of there. Guess it's not going to auto adjust focus, but I think you can see it. So I'm still holding tension on this hooker, so I'm going to go ahead and continue trying to feed this wire through. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to put my phone down for a second. Alright, so I got my wire through. Now I need to make sure it's still lined up with the groove, and it is. So we're going to go ahead and clamp this down, put some tension back on it. Okay. Like I said, not too tight, just tight enough to put a little tension on it. Gonna put our nut assembly back on here. That'll keep the spool in place. Okay, so we got our wire poking out through the terminal there. Now you're going to take your spool gun cable and you're going to feed it onto the wire first. It's also important to know which side of the terminal the keyhole's on, because your cable has a keyway. Well, I guess it has the key, and the keyway's in the terminal, so make sure you got that lined up. And put your cable back on there. Boom. Now, when you go to power it on, if you've done everything correctly, you should be able to just hold down your trigger on your spool gun. I think my tension might be a little too tight. I can feel it. Whoop. There we go. Got our wire poking out now. So I think it sounded like it was feeding pretty good after I adjusted it a little bit. See, that's slow. That's pretty quick. Alright. So now, we should be good. Just close that back up, shut your machine off before you move it around. There we have it. That's how you change out your wire spool. Not that I planned on doing that this evening, but hey. Is what it is. So, we're going to go ahead and throw the machine back over here.